Okay guys, so now let's talk about noses. You know, we have drawn noses in drawing one, and I think maybe that substructure that we've always used in there, you know, where we've got, move this slightly over this way, move this guy over here. So where we've got the circle that kind of represents the ball of your nose, and then the bridge, right? And then on both sides of that, there's like this little area that we kind of triangle off that represents kind of the outside edges of your nose, like this part, right? And then whether that point at the tip of your nose, this, goes high or low, you know, we give that kind of line there, right? And then that gives us all the information we need to create our noses, right? So the same sort of thing kind of happens with sculpting a nose, right? So you've got kind of the bridge, the middle in between your eyes that connects to this sort of form that runs down the middle, and then you've got nose holes, and you've got the ball of the nose. And so, you know, if they've got a big nose, right, they've got a bigger ball here. If they've got big nose holes, they've got big balls here. They got a tiny middle, they've got a little ball there. So all of this stuff kind of gets dictated by whatever size nose they've got, right? So I'll pull all my little parts off. It's similar to what we did with eyes, where we had, you know, this sphere in the back that we were impressing into, and then creating the flaps that went on there. So, you know, it's the same thing that happens when you know, when you draw an eye. You've got, I'm not in this, you've got the basic sphere, right? The big circle. And then this represents kind of the center of your eye, and that represents the angle. And then your eye sort of gets built on top of that, right? So it's the same premise with the nose. The same sort of structural stuff starts to happen. You know, and so then you've got that lid, right, that's overlapping and creating shadows on the eye itself. So, you know, when we're drawing eyes, we're still looking at all the same details that we do when we're actually sculpting the eye. And so the same thing's going to happen with the nose. So understanding the mechanisms going into it's going to be real helpful. All right, so let's move this back out of our space. So we're starting out with kind of this basic form, right, that we can start to mold into a nose. This is a little easier if you've got an actual face that you're working on, but for the time being, we're just going to kind of work a little bit more flat here. So this kind of creates the bridge structure of your nose, right? The part of your nose that runs here, sort of this way, this part. And then we've also got to construct this little lip connection down here. And so that's what we're working on right here with this extra bit of clay. At some point you'll have to come back in here and start to add, you know, some more clay to kind of build up that little area that happens kind of in between the nose holes and the lip. So it's kind of, I'm looking for a little bit different size ball tool. You know, that little surface that's raised in between your nose holes. under your nose holes that connects to your lip. So that little area. And so this section of the nose, which is actually, the point of your nose, everybody's is different, and so it depends on, what you're working on, how big this is. So we're gonna go with kind of a heavy duty ball for that, a little bit bigger nose. So that's gonna be our tip, and it's gonna get melded into the structure of this whole nose. I like to use some kind of wooden flat tool to kind of help me start to build that. So you're just kind of working that process through, melding it down into the shape that you need it to be. And this is going to be just kind of a really, a roughed out sort of version. And then you've got the nose holes, right? The side parts that make up this. And some might be small, some might be large. We'll do a smaller and a larger, and then that way you can kind of see the difference in how this starts to mesh together. And so you just begin to kind of make all of this become a part of a whole, in the same way that you would work with shading. We're working with form, and starting to kind of mold these parts and pieces into the side of this nose. So this one's going to be like a little bit smaller nose hole. It doesn't stick out quite as far. That'll give you kind of a concept of how the different sizes of clay change the rough form of the nose. So on this side, so we've got this big kind of bulky nose hole that's starting to form. And then on this side, we've got this kind of small, narrow nose hole that's starting to form. And then this would be connected here, and our eyes would sit in on both sides. So I've kind of built one of these, sort of a half face here, where you can kind of see how this structure starts to get built in. So this is this, and then there's more clay going to be added in above and below. Of course, you'd have more up here to kind of create a forehead, and then more down here to create a chin. So for all intents and purposes, we're gonna add a little bit of bulk down here under this nose to kind of give you an idea of what this might look like if it had the upper lip sort of added onto it. And I'm just going to do this one side for the sake of not making this video 6 hours long. So you just start to kind of mesh all this stuff together, and put some on this side too, just so this makes more sense. So it's kind of thick on this side and thinner on this side to kind of create a upper lip. Okay, so we need a nose hole. That's going to vary, right? Depending on what kind of nose a person has. So we're going to make this one a little bigger and that one a little smaller. And these little flaps of skin around the bottom edge of the nose actually kind of wrap back around and attach back up under here. So you can kind of see how this all starts to take shape. And then you want to start to create kind of this bridge that happens between the nose This is going to be a huge nose hole. See how that's starting to kind of take shape, starting to look like a nose. And all I'm doing is just kind of using these circle tools to hold the nose up so that I don't crush it. And then there's a lot of shaping that has to happen on this upper lip, kind of flattening out of it and rounding off to sort of create a lip up here, but we're not going to worry with that for today. But I did want to give you an idea of kind of how this stuff starts to lay itself out. So for the smaller nose hole over here, I would come in along the bridge here and start to push clay out. And as you do that, you're going to have to find that clay a new home. So some of it's going to get kind of smushed up into the top edge of the lip, and some of it's going to be sort of worked into this bridge up here. So, you know, some nose holes are kind of longer and sort of move at a, you know, a different shape as they move up. They might be wider here and get narrow as they move up into that face up there. There may be a point where you have to come in and add a little more clay here and there just to kind of make that transition look a little bit better. That's no big deal. That's the beauty of clay, is it's an additive and reductive process, which means you can add it and take it away. This clay that I'm using is called plasticine. It's an oil-based clay that sculptors use because it never dries out. You can literally like work on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And sculptors who are working on really realistic work to be cast, like in metal or resin or something like that, we usually work in a plasticine clay because the workability's so much longer. So here we've got kind of the start of two different noses, really. So we've got on this side kind of a little bit more of a, kind of push that on in and work it, or this would all get, I'm just going to go ahead and show you a little bit more of